The following program is produced by the Tech Talk Radio Network.
Hey, this is Larry the Cable Guy, and you're listening to Tech Talk Radio.
Welcome to another episode of Tech Talk Radio. I'm A.D. Taylor.
I'm Sean DeWeird.
I'm Matt Jones.
And I'm Justin Lemmy. Holy cow, we got the whole crew here.
Yeah, well, you've been out sick. You feeling better?
Yeah, I'm feeling better, but my voice isn't.
You sound okay. You were saying that earlier, and I'm thinking, you sound all right. You don't sound...
No, I still don't feel like the voice is fully back.
Right. Now, and you went to a comedy show and got everybody in the audience sick. You did that.
Yes, of course. Got them all infected with the Rona. It was great.
What?
No, I went to it was a comedy show. He's somewhat famous, I guess. I mean, he's on Facebook. He does a lot of dry bar comedy, which they
cool.
have a pretty big YouTube channel. The guy's name is Rodney Norman.
All right.
He's very, very unique in his appearance because he looks like a hobo.
Yeah, he does.
Literally, like a homeless hobo. But he's a really, really nice guy. He's really funny. But the show was at Brews Beers, the brewery that's in our neighborhood, but it was actually at their other location downtown. I went down there with a friend, and we got there before the show, and I just I got to meet the guy, Rodney,
right.
And I was like, wow, I've been following you for a while. I love your comedy, and it was a very small show, maybe 20, 25 people, maybe at the most. But I did mention to him, I said, hey, I'm just going to throw this out there. I was, I'm a former radio DJ, and I, do a lot of voiceover work and things like that. I was wondering, maybe could I introduce you?
Oh, wow.
And he's like, actually, yeah, that'd be great. Cause all comedians get introduced and I didn't have anybody to introduce me. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be cool.
Oh, wow.
So, I kind of came up with a little script, and it was funny because I ran it by him, and he's like, oh my God. He goes, and you don't, I'll tell you what I said, but he told me, he goes, you don't do stand-up comedy. He goes, you really should do stand-up comedy because you're actually kind of funny. But basically what I said was, thanks for coming out tonight for the comedy show. We're here to see a very funny gentleman. He's been doing comedy for 27 years. And if you don't know who he is, it's kind of weird that you're actually here right now. But you've seen him on Dry Bar Comedy, and it took COVID for people to finally find him funny. Give it up for Rodney Norman.
Right.
And everybody just kind of laughed and applauded at that. And then I messaged Rodney the next day on Facebook, and he goes, I really, truly believe that you should be in stand-up comedy.
Well, that was
and
nice of him.
I was like, I don't understand because I don't have material. And he told me something that would really actually hit home to me because I sat back and I thought about it. He said it was so simple too,
right.
As most good advice is. He said, write the truth and the jokes will find themselves.
It's true. Yeah, that's true. That's kind of cool because you also had Brad, and I'm trying to remember Brad. You got a photo with him. And
Brad Williams.
Brad
Matt
Williams.
and I went to that show.
Yeah, that was an amazing show, and shout out to Brad. We all still hate Karen.
Yes, we do hate Karen.
I actually
Carol.
Yes, we hate Karens too, but Carol, we hate Carol.
Yeah.
I actually still have the sticker that he autographed for me. And the guy who opened for him, he had an opener. But I have his shirt that I bought it for Leonine. I still wear it, and it says, I like your dogs more than you.
Oh, so if you ever follow, just look up Rodney Norman on Facebook because he'll do these things where he'll just go live on Facebook for like 30 seconds and he'll be like, okay, so you survived until today, so you got that going for you. So have a super awesome day. Bye. And like that's it. That's all he says.
I think you look at some of the comics that are out there now, and there are more comics that we're seeing and getting a chance to hear. So I think they're getting their day because of YouTube and Instagram Reels and
TikTok.
Snap and TikTok. Because a lot of them you may not ever hear from, you're suddenly getting access to. There's one guy that I saw, and I think he's on Dry Bar as well. He's got to be, I swear he's got to be in his like mid 80s. And he does his jokes all based around.
I think I know you're talking about.
He does his jokes all based around being, an older gentleman.
Yep.
And boy, is he funny. He is. And that's all he does. It's like you said, talks about real life and the jokes follow. And it just comes along. But
I can't remember that guy's name, but I know exactly who you're talking about. He's very old. He's an older gentleman, very frail looking.
Yep.
But he is hilarious.
Yeah. There's one comic that I wish was still with us that is no longer with us that I think was a master at what he did. And if he would have lived a little longer, I think he would just been huge. Mitch Hedberg.
Oh, yeah.
And-
Oh yeah.
I
Right.
actually compare Rodney to a little bit of like a Mitch Hedberg style of comedy because he doesn't quite do just one-liners, but his jokes are very short.
Yeah. Matt remembers Mitch Hedberg as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I agree like entirely that it's definitely social media and easy access to short form entertainment that's giving all these people a leg up. Like just look at Jeff Arcooney. Like he started out just posting stuff on r/stand up. He's got his own subreddit. He's a big name now. Like that launched him to it. I remember being in like high school and the way you discovered a new comic is somebody brought in a CD on some trip where you're on the bus
Yeah,
for 6
Dane
hours.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Dane Cook. Yeah. What happened to
But no,
Dane Cook?
Jeff Arcuri actually just came to Denver about 5 months ago, and I was looking at going to his show until I saw the ticket prices.
Yeah. Has it gone up?
$350 a ticket.
For a stand-up show? Really?
Yes, that's how big this
no.
guy has gotten.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, one of like the foundational stand-up voices from like me growing up, you had the blue collar guys, and I remember listening to Bill
Get her
Engvall when I was younger with the "Here's Your Sign," and
Here's your sign.
I just recently read that he decided to retire because he was like, I am a name synonymous with stand-up comedy. Like, I don't have to do this anymore. And then I was like, dude, you got more years left in you. And I looked up his age and I was like, oh God, time passes really quickly.
Yeah.
You know what?
He's like 65 now or something.
Yeah.
I just thought of, I would pay big money to see this. A Hallmark movie with Jeff Foxworthy, Larry the Cable Guy, Bill Engvall, and then the other guy who drank a lot. What was his name?
Ron White.
Ron
Yeah,
White.
Ron White.
They
I'm
You-
sorry.
call
I'm
me
sorry. Tater salad.
Tater. You imagine a Hallmark movie with the four of those guys? That
Oh my
would
God,
be
that'd
awesome.
hilarious. Well, it's funny is when my dad was still alive, we actually went to the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, and I
Yep.
believe it was our radio station KFPX that got me backstage passes.
Yep.
So we were able to go, and it was like a conference room. And I remember seeing Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy and Bill Engvall and Ron White, and they were all just standing around. And my dad was like a kid in a candy store.
It's so
You know,
cool.
And
Yeah.
he asked to get a picture with Larry the Cable Guy, and we got a picture, and Larry goosed my dad during the picture to make my dad be like, oh my God, in the picture.
Whoa.
Did we just lose Justin after telling the
think
story
we lost Justin
about
with
his dad?
Goosed my dad.
Yes, he goosed my dad, and Justin just froze.
Gone.
Oh, he's gone. Like, what happened? Oh, well, we know it's not the entire town of Denver because Matt, you don't live too far away, right?
I can throw a rock and hit his house.
I wonder what the heck happened.
Eric probably unplugged the internet.
Eric did something. No, the only thing I would add to that Hallmark movie, Andy, is if we're doing like our dream lineup on that,
Right.
I would want someone's angry grandfather to be George Carlin.
Oh, yes. You'd have to have
Just
it. So, like
the-
older comics, right?
Yeah, the absolute god of stand-up comedy. Just bring George Carlin back to film that movie.
Right? Yeah. But AI, I wouldn't want to see it.
I don't know. Don't
No.
give me AI. That you
Yeah.
can't capture George Carlin through AI.
No, that would not be good. I'm trying to think who is still with us that you'd be able to have in that as older cast, and then the female cast members because it's Hallmark. It's got to be a romance, so they've got to be romancing.
I would put Eliza Schlesinger up there.
Right.
Lee went to one of her shows, and I've watched most of her specials. She's hilarious.
Yep.
Absolutely enjoy watching her. She's phenomenal.
I feel like
Yeah.
I know a woman who would be really great in a Hallmark movie, Gilda Radner.
Oh, yeah.
She would have been good too, right? That would have been
So-
good too. But again,
Some-
that would have to be an AI thing to bring her back.
Some lawyer at Hallmark is just like, oh my God, we would get so sued. We would record that movie and then promptly burn it.
I don't know. We might be onto something. Can you
I think-
imagine? It would be great. The blue collar comedy love. Hopefully, Justin will make his way back in here. But we're reminiscing. We're talking about great moments. Talking about we lost Justin when he was talking about the photo with his dad and Larry the Cable Guy goosing him. Let's talk about photos. We have not been able to really focus on the scanning project that Sean has been involved in, involving the Epson Fast Photo 680. Sean, how's that been going?
So, Andy, ever since you told me you had gotten it and demoed it, right?
Yeah.
I was pretty bent on getting one, right? I was like, this is gonna speed up my process so much because I had at the time I had just the V600, the Epson V600 flatbed, which is a really good flatbed scanner. It's probably one of the top flatbed scanners you can get, but it's impossible because you can only scan like four by sixes at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes, and if you scan at 300 DPI, it still takes 5 to 6 minutes to scan those four, and then that's all you get. And then you have to manually save them, and it's a pain. So you had said, "Hey, check out this scanner that I got. I demoed it. You showed it on TV." And I waited, and finally I pulled the trigger and bought one.
Yeah. And they're not cheap, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think total from B&H Photo, it was like $525 or something. This thing's awesome.
yeah.
I'll send a video and you can put it on the blog. It scans at 600 DPI a photo a second.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even more, if you're doing a 300 DPI,
If you're doing
faster.
300 DPI, it's like half a second. Scan. It just spits them out.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my grandparents' photo collection. You know, I had this. We've talked about this extensively throughout the history of the show, right? Since 2019, since I started this project, and I had a ton of decades worth of loose 4x6s with no negatives to scan.
Right.
Right, just they lost the negatives. The negatives were bundled up with other pictures, et cetera, et cetera. So I had gone through and had sorted it by decade, by year. So the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, et cetera.
This was a lot of prep that you had already done, or you had to do that?
This was already done because I
Right.
didn't want to. I wasn't going to sit there and scan these 3-4 at a time. Like I'd done it for a couple days back in when I first started. I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucked. You lay them in, you flip it down, and scan. Okay, you wait, flip it up, take them out. Then you're goobing up the glass, and you got to wipe it off every time. I blew through 3,800 photos in the last week.
Wow.
Good Lord.
Wow.
That is a lot.
Just sitting there, and on my nights, or just during the days I had off from work or whatever, you bundle up 60 or 70 photos in a stack. It's about a 2-inch stack of photos. You line them up in the thing. You put the guides together, and you hit scan, and it just goes scan, scan, scan. It's scanning a photo a second.
Now, are you scanning it to? Now, some people will scan and use their phone app to gather the photos. You're scanning to a computer, right? Is it connected?
I'm just scanning directly to. I have a Mac Pro that I've got. I've got a little workstation set up with this scanner plugged in, and it's going great. I mean, it's cool because it can prompt you every time you start a batch of photos, so you can give it a name, a date, a month, the time of the year, or just a name for the file, etc. And going through it, there are some frustrations that I had, some good things about it, and like the good thing is you can have it auto edit your images, just do a quick processing, like red eye reduction. If it comes in crooked, it'll fix the crookedness. It'll do a little bit of like contrast.
Wait, so what if you have photos from the old days of the photomat, and maybe they're taken with a 110 and the color is just not as crisp, but all of the pictures have that same kind of blah look to it? Can it adjust all of those then in that batch?
It can, yeah. It scans them, and then when you're done scanning, you can either load more photos and scan to the same batch, or tell it to finish and it'll process. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes to process about 60 photos. I don't like the fixes.
Right.
They were not good. Some were poor, some were good. So then sorting through, okay, it gives you 2 files. It gives you the original, it gives you the edited ones. So it gives you file 1A, file 1B, file 2A, file 2B. So you have to go through it. Now it's like filtering through those is kind of a pain.
Right.
So I did scan a lot of them like that where there were doubles. But then I was just like, I'm not liking the results. So I just ended up eventually after probably 1,100 photos, I just stopped doing the edits.
Right.
I'll go through with Lightroom and edit them if I want to. Like I'll take care of the editing on my own. Some of the other cool features that are on this is my grandma was very good about writing details on the backs of the photos.
Ooh. So what do you do in that point?
this will scan the front and the back at the same time.
Wow.
Oh,
Oh,
I didn't.
man.
Oh, I didn't know
That
that.
is
And
super
you
cool.
can go in and you can tweak the settings to be more aggressive, meaning if it detects a little bit of handwriting, it might not scan it. Or you can make it less aggressive to where it will scan the entire back, even if there's no handwriting on it. So it scans the front and the backs at the same time if you tell it to. You can automatically tell it to, which is great because then it scans and then you get two pictures. You get it basically gives you, file 1A,
Right.
file 1B. And
In
if
that
you choose to
person,
have
in
it-
that person's writing, which I don't know about you, but that's something special as well to have a grandparent or parent's
Yeah.
handwriting. You're seeing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
super
we're Lee and I are dealing with that right now. One of she found her grandfather's handwriting and got it inverted as a tattoo because one of his big phrases was always "You be good to you," and she got that. So anytime she looks at it in the mirror, it always says that to her. Now we're going through all of her paternal grandmother's photos, documents, everything, desperately trying to find something of her handwriting so that we can use that to, she wants to possibly create another tattoo from that. But yeah, it being able to actually have that digitized and stored and saved that's amazing.
That is cool.
Yeah, so and it'll do like it does just more than 4x6s. I think it only has a specific like thickness it can do. Like it can barely do postcards.
Right.
But it'll do postcards, so front and backs of postcards. Because my grandparents sent and received a lot of postcards from my family growing up. They have a ton of postcards that I scan and save the front and the backs of all the postcards. So it was a really cool process, right? The one caveat I will say, if you're doing a lot of pictures in a short amount of time, you have to open it and clean the scanning surface.
Did you
Because
have
if you're
Did you have some
scanning-
jams?
So I had some jams, and then if you have to take photos out of albums, they're in plastic sleeves. That plastic leaves a residue on the surface of the film. Also, the emulsion from the film is sticky, right? So as you scan, if you don't open it up and take some IPA and scrub it across, not beer, just isopropyl alcohol.
I was like,
Scrub it
oh,
across
really?
the-
what kind of beer are you putting on?
I was going to say, would you don't want to use a hazy for that, right?
Yeah.
Because we're trying
Right,
to
not a
clear
hazy.
it.
Just
Maybe
an
an
imperial.
amber.
Because it's got two elements in there, a front and a back. And one of the albums that I'd taken apart was you had stuck them on, like in this album with the adhesive, like they came like that from the store.
Right. Right.
So at one point I had pulled all that off. So as it was going through, it was rubbing that adhesive across there, and I ended up looking at the pictures, and most of them had streaks because it was rolling through and then just rubbing off on the glass.
So
on
you
the
say
front and
clean
the
it,
back.
like how often would you do that?
I started doing it after every batch. So I would do like 60 to 80 photos, and then I would clean it.
Right.
Because then you get debris, you get oil from oil from the fingertips, oil. It just got gummed up. So I just took a 100% cotton lint-free pad, 99% alcohol, scrub, done, rinse and repeat. So
Wow. How much time would you
worst-
say this saved you?
dude, days,
Yeah.
weeks. I mean, I scanned so many photos, and this also because I had some free time. So now I had these files. I had all these folders with the different years, the different days, and they were all just in one big directory. So then I was like, well, I kind of want it sorted by year.
Mm-hmm.
So now what do I have to do? I have to go and look at every year that I've got. So, well, I've been using ChatGPT and Amazon Q to write Python scripts for me. So all I did was I downloaded Visual Studio Coder.
Right.
That's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Downloaded the Amazon Q extension, said, please write me a Python 3 script that will take this directory. If it has a 4-digit year in it, please put that in a new directory with all of the other folders that have the same year. Please go send. Clicked on the directory, told it this directory, boom, they're all in a new folder. Okay, now I want you to sort the originals and the edited ones because it says, file 1A, file 1B. Please separate those into two separate directories, one called edited, one called originals. Go, send, boom, done. All in
Wow.
minutes.
Wow.
I mean, I've never coded in Python in my life.
Right.
That's really
maybe
cool.
maybe a little bit. So if you're interested in doing like stuff like that, like very simple, like just batch file naming, it took me a day to get all of that organized using
That is
Python.
really cool.
So, and Amazon Q will help you install the libs, the directories, I don't know. So if you're curious about just doing a little bit of Python coding, or if you have a little bit of Python coding experience, Amazon Q, it's free to use with the Visual. It's Visual Studio.
VS Code.
Yeah.
Yeah, VS Code. That's it. So,
All right, but you had a choice of going with the Epson Fast Photo 680, which I showed on television and loved it. It's the one you see in the ads with Shaquille O'Neal and his mom, which I think are pretty cool, talking about preserving memories. Or the Visioneer, because I remember you sent me an email saying Visioneer, it's about $100 cheaper. Did you compare the specs and just look at it, because Epson just seemed to offer a little more when it came to the software and what it was able to do?
I've had such good experience with Epson scanners over the years with the V600 that I have, plus some Epson scanners I've had in the past.
Right.
And they're kind of up there in the terms of like the best of the best in scanning quality and in just hardware. So I just pulled the trigger on with the Epson. I didn't know enough about Visioneer. It's not a product I had heard of before. I'm sure it would have worked fine, but this did everything I needed it to. I bought it on B&H. I have a great reputation with B&H personally and professionally, so that was super easy.
What are you going to do now when you scanned all these photos, you finished the project? Will you then tell your friends, hey, you have photos you need scanned?
Well, I mean, so this was just my grandparents' stuff, right?
Yeah.
So now I've got my parents are going to be bringing all my my parents and my childhood stuff in, and I'm going to scan all that in too. So then my aunt, and my uncle, and Caitlin's parents, and like they've over
this
the years,
is where you messed up.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but over the years, it hasn't just been my grandparents' collection, right? I've digitized stuff for Caitlin's family. I've digitized stuff for other friends' families, friends' collections. Like somebody says, "Hey, I found these random 35 millimeter scans in my basement. Can you scan these for me?" Sure, it takes me 20 minutes, whatever. But I like what the best part about this experience for me, and I've said this before, is the tactile feeling of looking and remembering memories from my childhood or from my family.
Yeah.
Now, some of them have passed, right? So seeing these pictures like, oh, it's my grandpa. It's great. Like here, I've got this picture of my grandparents right here that I scanned in. It was just happened to be sitting on my desk.
Oh, that's cool.
This is awesome for me because this is a physical picture. I can feel this, right? Somebody in my family took this picture, and it represents me and my family and my loved ones. So that's been the best part of this whole process, is just filtering through and organizing the photos and looking at this going, okay, these are of my uncles from the 80s. I wasn't born.
Wow.
Right. But it's like these are memories for him. So now I've saved some of the best ones in a folder, and I'll periodically just send them to those family members in text messages.
That is cool.
I've mailed them.
Right.
Like I've just surprising people with little life moments like that.
That is really cool.
You'd be surprised how often that comes up. Going, hey, I loved that picture, by the way, or hey, it made me cry that you sent a picture of Papa saying my name on my birthday back when I was 2 years old, and he passed away 10 years ago.
It's also kind of special too, because I mean, digital is nice, and yeah, you could scan it, send it digital. You could also, if you got a good printer, you could also print it, and that way people would actually have a physical copy of that picture.
Yeah, I will say that this scanner does not like glossy printed photos. Like if you took an inkjet and printed it on photo paper, you get that really thick paper, the really glossy, almost cardstocky type stuff. This hated it. Because my grandparents had some of that, and you could tell it would make squeaking noises when it pulled the paper through. It definitely did not like that stuff. So yeah, no, it's been a great experience, and some of the feedback that I've gotten from other family members has been that, not everybody would take the time to do this. Right? This was a very labor-intensive thing that I did, and a lot of it took place during COVID, so I had a lot of extra time to do it. But it's just not a lot of people would do that.
It's a very fulfilling family project, which is what it's. And Epson has made it a little easier for you, which I think is great.
Yeah, this was like this saved the end of this project because I was never going to get that done. Because I'm not joking. Like it was a pain in the rear end to flip that scanner down to do 4 at a time, 5 to 6 minutes, 8 minutes to do 4 pictures. and this was cranking out 60 a minute.
Wow. We'll put the video up on our blog. Listeners can take a look at that as well to see just how fast this is. But once again, it's the Epson Fast Photo 680W, which is available now. It came out probably about 7 or 8 months ago.
And all the software is free, so just download it from Epson's website. I was going in minutes. Didn't
There you
take
go.
very long to set it up at all.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back. We have listener questions. I've got a question for you guys. Maybe you could help me with something that I've decided to jump into the Windows 11 fold, and I'll tell you why. That's coming up with Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Sean DeWeird.
I'm Matt Jones.
And I'm Justin Lemmy. Find us on the web at techtalkradio.com. We'll be right back.
And now, back to Tech Talk Radio.
All right, so when it comes to Windows 11, which is in October, that will be the end of life for Windows 10, as they say it now. Don't let that scare you. You need a lot of people talking about that. They say end of life. And then right away you're going to think, oh my gosh, my computer's going to just stop working. It's not going to do anything. That's not the case. It means you're not going to get the security updates. We've seen this before. Microsoft is saying you could pay for updates. They might make that available. If there is an update that is, going to be really needed, they may still put one out. They did that before with XP. They did that with Windows 7 when they said that was in the end of life. They put one out. But as we continue to go down this road with Windows 11, those that do have it have done updates and have been nothing but disappointed. Updates that have gotten rid of certain features like WordPad. Of course, it's very easy to bring back, but they got rid of it. Why? I have no clue. I don't know. Is it so that people would go ahead and start using their Office suite? The other problem that I found is networking. And some have tried to find a workaround to that. And I just discovered it the other day what the real problem was. So I have a studio that is separate. I'm in right now from an office. And in the office is where I do all my editing. I'll have people come in and record in the studio, or we'll record the show. I'll go into the office where it's a little more comfortable, and I'll do my editing in there. And it used to be I saved it on a shared folder, and I would go in the other room and I could pull that folder across and do the editing I needed. As soon as I installed one of the 24H2, I think it was, couldn't do that anymore. Couldn't access the other computers, couldn't find them, couldn't see them. It was just, it was so frustrating. And I know there's probably a quick workaround, an easy workaround, but it was working for me. So the other day, I went to update Gloria's computer in her office, and I left it on. And when I sat down on my computer, all of a sudden her computer was showing up on my list of network computers. Her computer is Windows 11. So that's what it is. It's only working with Windows 11 based computers. It'll show my laptop and it'll show that, and that's it. And I could connect to it. So I decided, all right, for the studio, just for the sake of making it easier, I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet. I've got an i3 in here now that is an older i3 processor that, it's not the newest. I can't upgrade it. There's not TPM 2.0 in it. It's an old motherboard. So I decided to go ahead. I had a Z790 from Asus that I said, okay, I might as well go ahead and update it. And so I have that board there. I went ahead and I ordered an i5 12.4 in from Intel. They were only $111, right? I thought that's not a bad price. Bought the memory and a sound card, and that's going to be used just for our recordings. But one of the things I noticed, and I have a big old fan. I didn't really want to use that big old fan for it because it's not a powerhouse system. It's just recording audio. But the processor I bought even came with the Intel fan. And, some of us have bought processors that come with the fan. But I noticed on the bottom of the fan, you get 3 strips of heatsink or, paste, thermal paste. But I'm thinking, is that enough? So I wanted to ask you guys, should I put more thermal paste on the processor and not rely on the 3 strips that you get on the fan?
First off, you need to scrape that off and get better thermal paste.
All right.
Like liquid metal. I can't remember what is it? Is it liquid thermal or what is it called?
Yeah, I think it is. It comes in a little white bottle.
Well, there are all kinds of different ones now, but it's basically liquid metal. That's
right.
What you want. That stuff,
it's not going to work. Yeah.
I mean, it'll work, but it's not going to be great. Every time I've done a build, I scrape off that carefully. You don't want to use like a metal scraper, or you can use a razor blade, but you got to be careful about the angle that you scrape it off of, because you don't want to scratch the actual heatsink. But scrape it off, get it cleaned off, use some alcohol to get residue off, and then put fresh, like liquid metal thermal paste on it. It's going to be much better.
I actually have it's almost like I would say a degreaser for thermal paste. It's made just for that, for removing thermal paste from processors. So I could probably use that on here as well. Put it on.
Yeah, you can use that on there. Justin's on Team Liquid Metal. I've been using Noctua, king of computer cooling for so long, came out with theirs. They have a Noctua NTH1, which is their version of thermal paste. Before that, I was using Cryonaut. But yeah, the stuff that you have on there, like, yes, it will work.
Right.
But within a year, you're going to start seeing temperatures starting to spike, and you're going to have to go do it anyways.
Right. Might as well do it before I connect it, right?
And then you left out the big question, the truly divisive question. Do you do a pea-sized dot? Do you do the X? Do you do the box? How do you apply your thermal paste?
This question just came up in one of my Discord groups of a buddy who's rebuilding his PC, and he said, "Hey, what are the recommendations for how to apply thermal paste?" And everybody gave a different answer.
Really?
Yep. I'm on team. You put a dot in the middle and you spread it out evenly across the whole surface.
Yep.
Now, how do you
That's
spread
how I
it?
do it.
How do you spread it out, though?
They usually come with a little spade that a little plastic
Yeah.
spade that you can use. But I just put a nice even coating around it, around the edge. You can't see the writing on the top of the processor. It's worked fine for every build I've done.
Yeah, I always.
But that's a cardinal sin for some people.
Yeah, I've seen some people, they put so much thermal, you squeeze it and then it's coming off the sides and everything. And what are you doing? Yeah.
You don't want that.
No, thermal paste is one of those where, like, you want to start a nerd fight in Micro Center with, like, one sentence. You just be like, there's only one right way to put on thermal paste, and just say whatever it is, and whatever you feel like saying that day. And like meerkats popping up, you'll see people being like, do you say she used the dot? He said no, you got to use the X. No, man, you got to spread it out. No, you got to do the box. And then you walk away as you've sown chaos in your wake.
All right, so Matt, Sean says he likes the dot. Do you have a particular method?
I do the dot, and then, like Sean, I do like a gentle coat, but I don't take it all the way to the edge. I leave just kind of like a little border gap, just so, because I know it's still going to squish a little bit. So I give it just like a little bit of room to move out. And I recently had to do that 3 different times when building this server rack setup, because we got Lee's all set up and then found out that my old motherboard was dead.
Right.
And at that point, when you have to do it that many times in a short span, you get really good with thermal paste. Like,
Justin, what about you?
I'm kind of team dot, honestly.
Team dot, yeah.
I mean, yeah, team dot, use a little spade, spread it around. If there's a tiny bit of it that, doesn't get quite covered, I'll put a tiny little bit on. But honestly, with when it comes to like thermal paste, it's less is more.
Yeah.
Now less is more, because, again, the same person that we were talking about in my Discord group had an issue where when he tried to pull the cooler off, he pulled the CPU out.
Right.
He had it loose, but because it had baked on there for so long, it didn't separate from the cooler.
So did he rip it off the pins?
No, he didn't damage anything, but thankfully. But the recommendation is you either fire up your computer for a minute or two to let the CPU warm up, or if it's already out, you can use a hairdryer or a heat gun and just heat it up a little bit and hopefully break it free. But just be careful when you do that, because if you are pulling on the cooler and it's not coming off the CPU and you're still locked in place, you have to be careful, because you could rip it out and rip out pins or damage the socket, right? The LGA or whatever.
Right. So, all right. So next big question too is going to be, what do you do with the old computer then? And a lot of people are going to be maybe going that route, going to buying a new system, building their own.
I have a nice shelf back here. I can put all your spare computer parts on. With all the rest of my spare computer parts on.
Yeah, if any listeners are like, I don't know what to do with my computer, you've got 4 guys that you're listening to who will gladly give your wayward computers a home.
Oh yeah.
I actually just started a project because, as you guys know, I've been unemployed for a while. I thankfully finally landed something. But in the meantime, I started building a really like enterprise grade home lab.
Right.
So I took an old computer, wiped all. It's got like 12 terabytes of storage on there. It used to be my media server, and I've got two other ones, two smaller machines. I've installed Proxmox, which is a virtualization platform, on all of them. They all talk to each other, and I'm just setting everything up. Like I'm messing with stuff that I've never gotten to do or play with in my professional career. I'm playing with Kubernetes and Docker and Terraform and Ansible and screaming curse words deep into the night as it's like everything's working except DNS isn't quite working. And I'm like, okay, DNS is never working. So thank you. That's fantastic. That's always another good one for old computers is if you just Google what can I do with an old computer, and you'll have this slew of projects come up. I mean, Justin's got a really cool home assistant set up.
That's right. Yeah.
That people could, you need some computer know-how, but I mean, that's really, really cool.
Right.
Yeah. Smart homes are really cool. And honestly, Home Assistant has gotten a lot easier over the years. When I started getting into Home Assistant, you were still writing in YAML code, which now you don't have to do that anymore. Most of the, 95% of the stuff you can do in Home Assistant is through the web UI. But yeah, it does require a little bit of a know-how. Yeah.
Right. Well, PC World put out a story recently too about this, upcoming end of life for Windows 10. And they were offering up some alternatives, and I was reading the article and I thought about it. And they had these alternates. They said you could continue to run Windows 10 if you wanted. You could pay for upgrades to Microsoft. No idea what they're going to charge for that. Are they going to charge $5 a month, or something like that? Or you could say goodbye to Microsoft and run Linux. The problem is you say that to most people and they will run the other way because they have no idea how easy Linux is to actually employ. They think it's something that only, Jimmy Neutron would end up being able to do, when actually it's really not that difficult.
Well, even in the past year or so, I mean, now that Linux has come out with Linux Mint and other variations of Linux that are almost replicas of Microsoft Windows with no command line needed. Right. People think Linux and they're like, oh my God, I got to be a hacker. I got to know command line. Not anymore.
No.
The three
you still can.
You can, yeah. I mean, if you really want to be a hacker, you can install Kali Linux. That's a Linux distro built for penetration testing. But if you're an end user, John Q. Public looking to dabble in Linux, the three most accessible distros. And when I say distros for listeners, that's short for distributions, because Linux comes in so many different varieties. But the three most accessible distros are Mint, Arch, and Ubuntu. Ubuntu. Those three are almost, as Justin put it, they're almost carbon copies of Windows. It's a very, very small learning curve to get into that.
Yeah, the one I tried was Winbuntu, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's another great one.
Yeah,
you might have a slight learning curve with it, very small, but overall, if you're just web browsing, email, maybe checking, maybe hit up Netflix or something like that, then those distros would easily take care of your issues. And Linux, because it is a much lighter operating system in the way it does things, that even older computers will seem lightning fast on any of those distributions. Windows does this thing called a graceful shutdown. It calmly asks everything to turn off. Linux drags everything into a back alley and puts a round in it and says, "You're done."
That's
Windows.
That's a great explanation. Yeah,
that's a beautiful way of putting it.
Windows is like, "Can you please turn off?" And Linux is like, "I'm gonna have to old yeller you. I'm sorry."
Yeah, and Windows, you're like, "Can you please stop?" And they're like, "No, no, I'm not. I'm just gonna sit here and wait, and you're gonna be waiting for me to reboot."
All right, we got to take another break. We come back with more of Tech Talk Radio. You make that face. Keep making that face, Justin.
No. No, I'm not.
I wanna.
I don't wanna. I see that face way too much with my kids right now. I don't want to look.
Oh, yeah. All right, more of Tech Talk Radio on the way. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Sean DeWeird.
I'm Matt Jones.
And I'm no.
That face, that's just a golden. We'll be right back.
Now, back to Tech Talk Radio.
Listener question from Ricky in Tucson.
All right.
Listen every week and try to absorb everything I can. I decided to go ahead and instead of buying an HP or pre-built system to go my way and build my own. However, it's been a while.
Nice.
Very nice. Good. First off, good choice, Ricky.
Yeah.
I was looking at the site you guys recommended, PC Parts Picker, but wondered, do I still need to buy a separate sound card and graphics card, or can I get them integrated? That is a fantastic question, Ricky, and I'm going to break it into 3 parts.
All right.
The first one's going to be nice and quick. Do I still need a sound card? No, you do not need a sound card. I have not rocked a sound card in probably close to a decade.
Unless you're like an audiophile or doing like audio engineering.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you really need like high quality audio, which 99.5% of us don't, the onboard audio is just fine.
Right.
It'll take care of you. As for the graphics card and can I get them integrated? It used to be that pretty much every processor came with some form of integrated graphics. Around about 4 or 5 years ago, chip manufacturers started chopping that feature out.
Oh.
And the reason that they were chopping that out is to give more room on the die, more cores, more power. You now need, if you want to do integrated graphics, you have to make sure that you're looking on the details of the processor and see if it has an integrated graphics unit. If it has one of those, you can definitely use that. That'll power your system. That's more than fine. AMD used to use something, they didn't call it a CPU, they called it an APU, an accelerated processing unit, and it came with both.
All right.
My recommendation, if you're just using this for general everyday use, surfing the web, things like that, yeah, you can do that. I'm a fan of the graphics card because that frees up a lot of the thinking power to solely be done by your CPU. It's not doing any rendering or anything like that. So I would recommend you get a graphics card instead of going the integrated route.
Would Ricky need to go, Matt, all the way to the 5090 or 50? I mean, I saw that. And I was like,
no, I was about to touch on that. If you are gaming, you absolutely need a graphics card.
Yes.
If you are not a PC gamer, you do not need to be buying the new NVIDIA 5070, 5090 or the
Right.
Radeon, 7900 XTX. Like you don't need to be spending, $900, $1,000 on a graphics card. Just like a low to mid level will take care of you just fine.
All right.
So to summarize all that, no, you don't need a graphics card. Depending on what you're using, you can go integrated. Just make sure that the processor you buy has an integrated graphics feature to it. And I still would recommend going for what's called a discrete graphics card. That's just buying a GPU. And depending on what you're doing, tailor it to your budget.
Right. Now, I'm wondering, he's going through PC Parts Picker. Can't you go onto that site and actually say, well, here's what I want processor-wise, here's what I want motherboard size, and it can pair up some of the things, like it may pair up a price range for a graphics card on the lower end, and then, of course, one on the upper end, and then, of course, your memory
that's
options.
What I like. That's what I like about PC Part Picker is that you have a compatible check mark.
Right.
And so whatever you toss in,
Big
it's
thing.
only going to recommend you compatible parts.
Well, this was the entire reason behind the guy that created PC Part Picker. Was because he would build PCs over and over again, only to find that half the parts that he bought were not compatible with each other. So he actually quit. Well, he started the whole project of PC Part Picker as a side gig, but then it got to the point where he was able to actually quit his job as I think it was a software engineer, to do PC Part Picker full time, because this was becoming such a huge issue for people that wanted to build PCs. Was that they did not know what pieces fit together.
We joke that like building a PC is like adult Legos at this point. Like, this thing goes into this matching slot. But then we have new technology that's come out that, while has provided benefits, has also added in complications. You now have memory memory, which used to just be like, I need to make sure that the memory is compatible with my motherboard for like type and speed. Do I have a DDR4 motherboard? Do I have a DDR3 motherboard? Now you need to look and be like, oh, do I have an Intel board? I need to buy the Intel memory feature compatible RAM. Do I have an AMD motherboard? Then I need to buy the AMD feature, which is called Expo compatible RAM. Otherwise, you don't get that feature. And it's just one more thing that little compatibility check mark is going to save your bacon, because I'm a tech guy, but I'm not reading every single tech blog, every single update that's coming out. And when I was rebuilding a PC recently, I was like, what is the AMD compatible RAM versus the Intel compatible RAM? I felt like Mr. Incredible, like math is math, RAM is RAM. Like, what is going on?
Well, and let's not forget too, depending on the board that Ricky's going to get from PC Parts Picker, he'll also have to make a decision. What does he want to do as far as storage? Does he want to run the M2? Does he want to run SSD? Or does he want to go old school and run, a spinny?
Please God, no.
No, don't do that.
They still sell them. I mean, which route is going to be the best for him to go to?
I mean, most motherboards now are coming with minimum 2 of the M.2 slots.
Right.
And to be honest, like that's the only direction I'd be going at this point. Like
Justin.
All right, Justin, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just
You
going
got-
to say,
you got-
I mean,
you got scoffed at.
no, I agree with Matt, because I'm saying if you're going to build a brand new computer with today's technology and still run a spinny drive, that's like you buying a Ferrari and putting E85 ethanol gas into it.
You're not wrong.
He's
No.
not wrong at
You're
all.
not
Like
wrong.
M.2s run on a much faster interface, because
Yeah.
for drives, the big bottleneck, you can have the fastest processor, the best graphics card, enough RAM to choke a donkey. And if you're running on a spinner drive that's got then you're running into a bottleneck of how fast your data can be written and read. And the fastest speeds are on M.2 drives.
I was talking about to somebody the other day, and they were trying to tell me that M2 is less. It has less of a life than an SSD, an actual SSD chip, or not chip, but drive in your computer. And I said, where did you get that info from? They said, no, they're seeing stories that the M2s are failing at a higher rate than SSDs. And I thought, is that the case? Have you guys heard anything about that?
I'm
News to me.
brutal to my hard drives. I'm sorry, to my storage drives, and I haven't seen anything like that.
I feel like it's got to be user error, because I could feel like somebody just jamming it in there and breaking it. That's got to be the number one.
Or putting it in there and not putting the screw?
Or putting it upside down, or not putting the standoff in, or something silly like that.
Yeah, it's to go back to something that Sean said earlier about when you're taking the CPU cooler off, and if you're starting to really pull on it and it's not going anywhere, when you are building or disassembling a computer and you are having to force something, you are not doing it right.
No.
You add more force.
I did that. I did that to Gloria's system when I was building it. I could not get this thing out of the socket, the cord that was in there, and I was trying to get it to move it around, and I pulled so hard I pulled it right off the motherboard, the entire housing. So it was like, well, that's not going to work.
It looks like I'm going to Micro Center.
It didn't damage the board. I just ended up buying a card and using that instead, a plug-in card, so it cost me an extra $30. But I'll tell you, Samsung has actually just announced their new, and I don't know how you guys feel about Samsung's SSDs or their M2s, but they've got one that they're saying is now the world's fastest consumer drive, 14.8 gigabits per second. They're saying a PCIe 5.0 storage that will be available, and it's going to sell starting at $199.99. I don't know what that capacity is, and it comes with a 5-year warranty. So, I mean, five years is pretty good.
You just mentioned the 14 gig read-write speed,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we're talking about if you want to get a spinny drive versus an M2.
Okay,
right?
yeah. What is the difference?
I looked up what the average a read-write speed for a 7200 RPM drive is. It's anywhere between 100 to 200 megabytes per second.
Oh, man.
Okay, your low end M2 NVMe drive is 1 to 2.5 gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
second.
14.
1,000 to 2,500 megabytes per second. So that's a literal, likely close to 100 times or 5 to 10 times faster. Just
It's literally an order of magnitude in difference.
There you go.
Yeah.
you will see and feel a difference in your performance, and there's no reason when some of the 7,200 RPM drives are still the same price as 1 terabyte NVMe's.
And,
that's
and
true.
a spinny drive is going to die way before an SSD or an NVMe because it's got mechanical components. Like we talked about Andy like shows ago where he's like, I put in the drive and it started making a clicking noise.
Oh, yeah.
And all three of us were like, oh no. Like there is a mechanical component to the spinny drives. It's going to wear out. It is going to die. It is not a question of if, it is a question of when.
I'm still debating on whether I'm going to send that drive in. I bought a secondary backup drive that they could put it on, but it's $700. It's a great deal that he's given me, but do I really want the data that much?
Take it apart and use the magnets.
Yeah.
Ooh, the magnets are super fun to play with.
They're the best. You can't get them off anything once you put them on. I got one on my file cabinet. Can't move it.
Yeah.
I take the magnets out and I make wind chimes with the platters.
Oh, there you go.
And the wind chimes you make with the platters, because of how it reflects the light, will actually attract butterflies and honeybees.
Oh, really? Well, there you go.
If you want to know why I know this, Justin, you've met my wife. Does that shock you at all that I know how to attract honeybees and butterflies?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. All right.
Exactly.
We got to take another quick break. We come back with more of Tech Talk Radio. Remember, you could drop us an email, techguys@techtalkradio.com. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Sean DeWeird.
I'm Matt Jones.
And I'm Justin Lemmy. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Tech Talkers. We'll be right back.
And now, back to Tech Talk Radio.
So I was on my phone in my Pixel Watch because, as we've discussed before, I live in the Pixel ecosystem. And I got a notice that it was like, hey, Pixel is making a change to your emergency SOS. You now have to push this button 5 times and then confirm to activate it. If I am in a car crash bleeding out, how do you think I'm going to be able to click a button and then confirm it 5 times? Hold on, leaking femoral artery. Give me 1 second.
Is there a reason why Pixel said, let's add a couple of more of those button pushes just before the SOS goes out?
The emergency feature is like, so the Pixel phones have like detect car crash, like because it's got a G sensor in it. It'll be like, okay, you were doing 60 miles an hour, and then a millisecond later, you were doing 0 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And as Jeremy Clarkson said, it's not going fast that has ever killed anyone. It's the sudden stop that usually does it.
Yes.
So your phone will detect you're in a car crash, or the Pixel Watch can detect when you have a nasty fall. It's things where like you might be incapacitated. So we're gonna SOS for you. But then you might have some case where you're walking around at night, someone's following you, and you want to like get the SOS feature going, notify your family. So I'm like, why did they do this? And then I look and find out that through a mistake with the SOS, a gentleman's pictures of a sensitive, scantily clad nature
Oh no.
might have gone on a wide digital journey thanks to the SOS.
So something happened and he didn't realize it, and it sent out images that he probably would be very embarrassed at, maybe. I would say maybe because you never know with people these days.
You don't, but I sure would have been. Like, imagine getting that note, because like if my SOS triggers, my wife and my parents all get a notification about it.
Uh-oh.
Imagine being on the receiving end of that. Like, your husband has had a nasty fall and sent out an SOS. Oh my goodness, let me look at, and he's naked. What type of fall did he take, Google? Can I get more details on this? Because this is not a good look.
Sean, you're an Apple guy. The iPhone does the same thing, but does it send out like a picture or a text message?
I honestly have no idea. I've never looked into it. I can't imagine it would, but
Right.
Try it.
but he's going to look
Hold on
into
your
it
pants.
now.
Hold on your pants.
Please do not put us on your list if you do that, Sean.
Oh,
okay?
you're the top of the list if I'm trying that.
Sean, if anything happens to you, just know that, thoughts and prayers, and I wish you the best, but I don't need to know.
All right, so that's why you have the extra buttons on the Pixel, the emergency SOS that you need to set up when you get your device to who you want it to text in case of something happening to you. So in case you get lost somewhere or in case you need somebody to bring you some pants.
SOS, I need slacks.
I don't even know where to go from here. At this point.
All right, that is it for this week's Tech Talk Radio. I'm Andy Taylor.
I'm Sean DeWeird.
I'm Matt Jones. I'm going to get banned.
Oh my God. And I'm Justin. Let me find us on the web at techtalkradio.com. Have yourselves a great week. We'll see you.